Hey guys. So today I want to talk about how often it is for us to be taking for granted things in our life that once upon a time I don't even know if we would have had the strength to even pray for because we wouldn't have even thought them to be possible. And then one day they become our realities. Once upon a time, I used to be a heroin addict. I've been clean and sober for over 15 years. Oh my God, it's so weird to say that because there was a real time period in my life, mainly the first half of it, where I didn't see any life beyond that lifestyle and I didn't know anything different. I remember that. And we all have our dark days, our dark chapters, and some of us, you might be in yours right now. You know, life does not stop lifing just because we get one area of our lives under control, right? Something I heard early on is you do not get a pat on the back for doing what you were supposed to do. So just because you get sober and stop living that way and ideally stop being a menace to yourself and everyone around you, what came to mind was, wow, I'm really, really lucky today. And I am feeling gratitude and honor that God would put me in the very positions that, honestly, for the last long while, I've been having quite a lot of stress around. Let's just bullet point a few. You might relate to these exact things. You might have your own. Here's one that probably is not widely relatable, but if you're an artist, the last 18 months, me and my collaborator have been working on an album called Ghost in the Machine. And this month we're finishing that album. And I've been releasing music my entire sobriety. I have never done an album. So it's a full length album. It's not an EP. It's 10 tracks. So that's a huge deal. And the amount of stress that I put on myself to get it done on time and make sure blah, 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 blah. And how am I gonna, what's my strategy to promote it? All just the head trip stuff where it's like, whoa, I had this come to me in meditation where it's like, let's not rush timelines. Today, my season is finish this project that God blessed both of us in being tasked with shepherding these songs into the world, because I do believe that our gifts come from God. So stay in this season, because my head wants to go all the way out to when I have a projected release date in mind and start, getting anxious and worrying about how am I going to do this, that, and the third. It's like, I had to pause, because if God brought me this far, if God brought all of us this far, you think God's just going to drop us off? Just in the fine print, you know what I mean? There is an expression for that where it says God didn't pull you from the surf just to shoot you on the beach. And I forget that all the time. But what a blessing it is. Once upon a time, if you would have told me you're going to be a singer and you're going to sing all the lyrics you've been writing your whole life, I would say, oh, that's impossible. Right? I had so much self-doubt that it wasn't that I had tried and failed. It was that I was so full of self-doubt and self-hatred that I never tried at all. And I just assumed I couldn't. And it wasn't until I got sober and a series of events took place that I received the message, let's just say, that I had to try. It was terrifying, but I'm so glad I did, because I would have never known. And how many of us out there are alive right now and completely asleep to the gifts that we were tasked with bringing forth in this lifetime, to the fruit that we are meant to bear? And how much of us know this but hide it? Because fruit trees do not eat fruit, so why would we covet them? out of fear of being seen. It's such a weird thing, right? With cameras in our face all the time, but we're like afraid of it too. I had heard from somebody that I consider to be pretty wise that fruit trees don't eat fruit. They bear them for the weary passerby. And that's true. Fruit trees are not cannibals. They do not eat fruit. And that is the whole reason why I started. So sometimes it's good for us to take a moment, whatever it is that you do in your life, and remember why you started. Like that first thought of when you decided to do whatever it is that you do day in and day out. Because it's very easy to grow weary, especially in this world. And that actually was the reason. It wasn't worded the same way, but it was right when I had kicked heroin, right when I had gotten sober. And I remember how alone I used to feel before I got into recovery and before I got sober. I remember what it was like to be a junkie and to live that lifestyle and the horrible things that come with it. And I genuinely thought that I was unique in my suffering. And I thought, surely no one could have messed their life up this bad. You know, I had so much shame, and that's really what takes a lot of people out, is shame. That is, I think, the most dangerous emotion that we can harbor. Good thing that connection is the immediate cure. So when I got into recovery, which is a program of connection, that's when I realized that I was not unique at all. I met so many women, and dudes too, but it's usually advisable to, if you're a female, to stick with the other females. So many women that had my literally the exact same story. It was crazy. And I cannot tell you how healing that was. And if I would have never spoke up and said, this is what's going on, and if they would have never done it either, possibly none of us would be alive today. You know, that's the power of honest sharing. Genuine. And so when I discovered that my affliction that I had been battling on my own for so many years, and I started at a very young age, which is also why I got sober at such a young age. I got sober when I was 20. I would have been dead if I would have continued any longer than that. I started way younger than that. So, and hard drugs will really speed things up as far as what it takes for somebody to hit a bottom. I do not recommend it at all, especially now. It is, a lot of people don't make it, but I don't want to get off track. I'm sorry. But I remember being so shocked that I wasn't the only one who had been living like that. Because when you live like that, you do live in isolation. The only people that you really associate with are dealers, people with access to probably stuff that I can't say on YouTube, people who are willing to do things that I definitely can't say on YouTube. It's really dark. And so you're very isolated, and you don't come out during the day, you only come out at night. It's just vampire life to the core. It's very isolating. And it's not like junkies are out there having heart-to-heart conversations, not at all, not at all. So I didn't know, that this was if you go down that road, that's basically the result that everybody gets. If you're lucky, right? Because, I'm not sure which is worse, death or living that way forever without a solution. I would think the latter is worse. But once I realized that I was not alone, and once I realized the power of honest storytelling and bringing forth the fruits of our experience, even if it is suffering, to turn that into something medicinal for other people, that's when I knew I have to do this. No matter how scared I am, I have to do this. And all this stuff that we go through as humans, it can't possibly be for nothing, right? It's there for our development spiritually on a character level as well, but it's also there so we can be of a, basically what I was told is your suffering is there because it makes you uniquely qualified to be of service to somebody else. I remember when someone told me that, and I definitely was not happy with her when she said that to me, because I'm like, how about no? But she was right, and I'm grateful for that. So that's one thing, right? All this stress about the album and everything else. And it's like, man, I cannot believe how blessed I am that God has brought me this far to even be a channel to create and bring forth a full-length album with, by the way, an absolute musical genius of a collaborator whom I have such a profound and deep respect for. His name is Chris Cordero. His artist name is Sawtooth Wave. I'll put his link in this video. But he is just like, I have never worked with somebody where things were just so seamless and defied all expectations, and it's just been a very magical experience, to be honest. But let's take another thing, right? Because not everybody who's watching this is a musician. So, but the same principle applies though. Like, don't get hung up on the specifics. Apply it to like whatever you're working on in your life, right? So the thing of like, the problems I have today are things that once upon a time I used to pray for. That's true too. That's true too. Like, okay, so if you watched my last vlog, you know that I struggle with some chronic health issues, and I am doing a lot to seek solutions. And I'm a little bit more in depth with that on my Patreon. There is, YouTube is great, but it's not a free speech platform. Patreon kind of isn't either, but you can get away with a little bit more over there. So you can just go more in depth. So go to Patreon if you would like to kind of hear more in-depth solutions, because some of these larger platforms do not like you providing solutions to health matters. Yeah, it's kind of fucked up, isn't it? But even having health problems and praying to God. So first off, the fact that I have a God to pray to is like awesome, because I didn't used to. The fact that I have the means to even seek medical care at all that did not used to be my reality. That's a huge blessing. The fact that shout out to my Sicilian mother for training me how to do this, but I'm very conservative financially. And so the fact that I, over the last 2 years, had enough of a savings to resign from my full-time boiler room sales role and take time away from that industry. I hope I never go back, honestly, but to take time away from that to just focus on my health, that's a huge blessing. Like, once upon a time, I didn't have savings at all. And if I had an account, it was overdrawn. Once upon a time, I couldn't even get a bank to let me open a checking account. That is how different things used to be. And now it's like completely different. I've dealt with stress around housing, and like, okay, where I live is not a good area. Where am I going to find a decent place? That can cause stress, but guess what? I have the ability to rent an apartment. Like, I remember when I didn't. I do. I also know what it's like to be homeless. I have a roof over my head. Like, regardless of the problems, there's a roof over my head. There's a beautiful world outside. I have a bed that I sleep in that is mine. I don't have to worry about nothing crazy happening. I keep my place secure. It's, I don't have to worry about anybody causing any kind of ruckus in here. It's just my place. Like, it's, there's different ways to think about so many things. And yesterday, I'll just leave you with this. Yesterday, I don't know if you guys have these days. I'm sure you do because you're human. But there were a bunch of strikes that I would say are like the highs and lows. And sometimes it feels like testing, like on a spiritual warfare level. I don't know if you guys ever saw that movie Legion. It's a phenomenal movie. I can't remember like the main character who plays the Archangel Michael, but he's good. The whole cast was just phenomenal. But in the movie, I remember when everybody was like held up at this diner and all these angels/demons were like descending on the earth, and it was like this huge reckoning, and God was pissed and blah, blah, blah. And the Archangel Michael shows up to like defend the people there. And one of the nights, not to like spoiler alert this movie, but I'm pretty sure it's like 16 years old. So you should just go watch it if you haven't seen it yet. But, the first night they get attacked by these entities, right? In the movie, this is not real, this is a movie. And then the next morning, they like barely survive it. It's this whole situation. And then the next morning they come out and they're like, is that it? One of the guys, I think it was Tyrese, actually, he's in the movie too. And then the Archangel Michael goes, well, the first was a test of our strength. The next will be a test of our weaknesses. I did not forget that line. Okay, and I'm not like a movie buff, but like that stuck in my head because I think that's real for like our actual lives. So yesterday, I don't even know what the point of this video is other than like perspective changes and connecting with the supreme reality, our creator, God, whatever word you would like to use. Yesterday, there was some interesting things that happened, right? I'm not going to say what they were, but the first two things in the day were shocking news out of nowhere that we would, in our limited scope, categorize in the good category, right? So my natural response was a lot of excitement and kind of shock. The body processes the signals from excitement and anxiety the same way. So like if you get too much adrenaline going, I know that a lot of us love that, but it takes us out of our center and it takes me away from feeling like I'm connected to source, to my creator, to my intuition. And that's when you can make really dumb decisions or just burn yourself out, chasing like illusions or these sudden things that seem like they're answers to what you've been looking for. I try to caution myself whether it's good, supposedly good or supposedly bad, if anything is dragging me out of center. So that happened, and my solution was to like turn my thoughts toward the creator, to say the prayers and the mantras and sing the songs that I choose, that I connect with my creator with. And then like clockwork, like right after I had gotten centered and been like, all right, even if this is all really good stuff, do not put anything before your creator. Don't. I've learned the hard way more times than I can count. Every time you do that, things fall apart. So I did that. And then, just as suddenly as the other things came, some news that in my limited perception I would perceive as bad came. And that was actually harder for me to deal with. So it did feel like the first is a test of your strength, the second is a test of your weakness. Because as much as I felt myself getting pulled away or allured away into the illusions of the world with the first round, I think I have less experience dealing with things that I perceive to be like, oh my God, like this is so exciting. I don't know, but it's just been an interesting life. So maybe I had more strength in that area of like, all right, like, don't read too much into that. Like, stay centered. Like, don't just stay calm and, let this play out. Let's see what it really is. So I guess those are situations where trust issues can be an asset. But then when this so-called perceived bad news came, that was a lot harder. And I did reach out to a woman that I know here in my community and just kind of ran it by her. I was like, man, this just happened. And she was like, you know what? I think you might have just dodged a bullet. And so I'm like, you know what? You're right. Like, our perception of what is good and what is bad, like for all I know, those two things that I got so excited about, for all I know, they could actually just be posing as great things, and they could actually be like paths to a downfall or like very unpleasant experiences. And for all I know, this so-called perceived letdown or disappointment or yada, yada, yada is a huge blessing, because if that would have worked out, I could have been locked into a nightmare scenario for a while. So the woman I spoke to was like, you know what? Because she believes in God too. She said, God often shows up at the 11th hour. And I'm not at the 11th hour right now with that matter, meaning I'm not down to the wire. She's like, you still got time to figure that out. But if that didn't work out, there's probably something better. I guess the message for today, in just trying to wrap this video up, is may we take stock of all the things that we consider problems today that once upon a time our old self used to pray for. We would have like given an arm and a leg to have the kind of problems that we have today in a lot of areas. No matter how much it bothers you, I know it's going to irritate some people, but it's true. And may we take a minute to realize just how far we've come and just how far a hand of providence has been there for us. And may we be willing to consider, if we have things in our life that we perceive are bad, or things in our life that we perceive are going wrong just because they're not going the way we want them to. Because there's a difference between wrong and not what I want. But often we think they're the same thing. You know what I mean? We're human. So may we today, or whenever you're watching this, take some time to consider if we have things that we think are so wrong in our lives. Are we possibly dodging a bullet? Are we willing to buy the ticket and take the ride into a grand adventure of finding out, okay, if there's a wall there, if there's a roadblock there, then where else am I supposed to go? What's the reroute? And that's actually a very exciting experience if you have the right perspective. So perhaps these reflections can help us feel more connected and more trusting in the timeline that we're on, in the season that we're in. And maybe we can be a little more focused on each moment, being present with the breath of life, being present with the gift that our life is. Life itself is a being. Can we be present with her? Can we be present with ourselves and our loved ones? Just a few thoughts. So hopefully it's helpful to somebody else.